Alright, welcome back to the channel. I've been waiting to do this video. I did something similar where I showed you how to replace these with different things. So make sure you watch that video. It was really for my international subscribers. But in this video, I want to go into some detail of what each one of these additives are. Do I need to use them? Can I skip any? That's what we want to show you, and don't miss this video because it's that important.
Taking my sweet time, feels right, living in the moment, 'cause I know where I'm going.
And just so you know, if you need any of these additives for your winemaking, I got links down in the description of where you can get all these. Amazon links, all this stuff can be gotten from there. That's where I get my stuff, linked below. All right, I get a lot of questions that I don't have Amazon or I can't get to the links that you have in your description. Where do I buy this stuff? Or where can I find substitutes for it? So I will go over each one of these individually because I want to start with the things I would never give up and slowly work down the line until we get to the ones that you might be able to skip. So let's just stop the rambling and get right into this. All right, the number one thing, I would stop making wine if I couldn't get these Camden Tablets, because that is going to sanitize your wine. It is a must in this hobby because it's used for bacteria control in fermentation and then before bottling. But there are substitutes, and one of them is sodium metabisulfite. Do not skip Camden Tablets under any circumstance or rethink winemaking. Camden Tablets are a must on this list. Flashback. What are they used for? Number one, you gotta sanitize your fruit. If you're making wine from fruit, fresh fruit, you gotta be able to sanitize it. You wanna kill that wild yeast, and you want your yeast to do most of the work. You gotta use this or something in its place. And that substitute would be potassium metabisulfite or sodium metabisulfite. Now, these are available in most drugstores, so you won't have problem finding this. So what is sodium and potassium metabisulfite? All it is the powder form of your Camden tablets. So it's the exact same thing. That's why you can substitute this for the Camden tablets. And sanitize your equipment. If you're gonna fail, it's because you didn't use this. Now, another thing that you gotta sanitize in the wine hobby. I love Star San. I wouldn't go without it. All right, one of these things is Yeast Nutrient. I'm gonna show you. This is another one that you don't necessarily need if you got a good strand of yeast. But how do you know that? Here, Yeast Nutrient, I got substitutes. Flash forward for that. Basically, this is going to feed your yeast and keep it going and getting it, everything working properly. So a lot of people, instead of Yeast Nutrient, they'll make up a batch of black tea. Some people will use lemon juice, and then others will use raisins. These will be great for Yeast Nutrient as well. And you can go buy some bread yeast, the cheapest kind you can find. Put a little bit in some boiling water and boil it for about 5 minutes. And that is great food for your yeast that you're going to add to your wine. But Yeast Nutrient is just going to make a healthy fermentation in the primary fermentation. You want to kickstart that yeast. You want to feed your yeast, and Yeast Nutrient does that. It is very safe to use, but just make sure you use it according to your instructions, because that can be a little bit different depending on the kind you get. Pectic Enzyme. This is another one that can be skipped in certain cases. Like say you're making a juice wine where you're only using juice. This pectic enzyme is used to break up your fruits when you're starting your fermentation, where you're basically starting that batch fresh. This will help with also that hazing issue that a lot of you have come across where your wine just doesn't clear. If you got a pulpy wine, such as a mango, a peach, I strongly suggest you use Pectic Enzyme because it's just going to help break that down a little bit, but it's going to help clear and clarify your wine in the very beginning. So what you want to do is peel your papaya, and you want that green into your must. And that will work in replace of the Pectic Enzyme if you can't find that. Wine tannin. Now, wine tannin can be an optional item too, but if you're making fruit wine, again, it's strongly suggested you use wine tannin. Wine tannin, if you're making wine from grapes, you don't necessarily need wine tannin because there's tannins in the skins that you might put in, or there might be some tannins in the seeds. Anything that falls in like that on a grape, you don't need wine tannin. But if you're making wine from fruit, I strongly suggest wine tannin. It's just gonna bring out more flavors of your wines. Another thing you can use if you can't get wine tannins, and these will work. Raisins will add some tannins, plus sugar, some flavors. So raisins have a lot of uses when you're making wine from home. Here's one. Acid blend. Do you need acid blend? Well, if you're making a citrus wine, or like an orange or a pineapple that's got some citrus flavor to it, you're not going to need this because that's what this is doing. It's going to give your acidity a balance. So it will help in your fruit wines, but it's not necessarily a necessity. But I've made it with every single one of my wines. This acid blend works. Acid blend. This is what's going to give your wine some flavor. You want to add acid blend if you can find it. But again, there's alternatives to this, which is lemons. Lemon juice will give you a great replacement for acid. Acid blends are going to give you that sharp, crisp taste and balance that sweetness that's going to be in your wine. Potassium sorbate, or better known as stabilizer. Do you need this? Maybe not. If you're making a dry wine, potassium sorbate will not be needed in the bottling stage. That's when you put this in the bottling stage, because if you're back sweetening your wine, you're putting more sugar in. And that tendency will be for that yeast to start kicking in and start eating up some of that sugar and creating more alcohol. Stabilizer will stop that. It will stop fermentation from beginning and kicking off after you back sweeten it. If you're not going to back sweeten your wine and you feel like you've got all that sugar converted to alcohol and carbon dioxide blowing corks, that's what you're trying to eliminate with stabilizer. All right, if you've been watching my channel, you know I love bentonite. I won't give this up for anything. Is it safe? Yes, this is very safe. All this is clay. And clay is safe in your wine because it's just going to charge your particles in your wine and pull those particles down to the bottom of your carboy so you can rack it. Bentonite is a must. Don't skip bentonite if you can, but fast forward, maybe there's something else you can do. Flashback. You know I use bentonite. I love this stuff, but there's alternatives to this too. Number one, you could just keep racking and racking and racking your wine until you get all those fine particles. That's going to take you a little bit longer than if you're using bentonite, but it will work. Some people use egg whites. There's gelatin, people will use that. Some people use carbon and skim milk too. You know, I don't have any experience with that because, again, I can get to this bentonite, which I love. So I hope I was able to clear up some of the things, the additives that I use in my winemaking. A lot of people ask questions about that. It's one of the most common questions I get. Do I need all this? Some cases you do. I don't deviate much from this, but you can. And make sure you're watching that other video because I give you some substitutes from coffee to tea to lemons to replace some of these if you can't get them. And I did all my research on these. These are safe. They're made for winemakers. They're safe. A lot of them are natural ingredients like the bentonite. That's just clay out of the ground. All these are very safe, or I would not be using them. And make sure you're following us on Instagram. HowToDoneRight. You'll see a lot of behind the scenes stuff and things coming up on this channel. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, make sure you're liking and subscribing. And don't miss, I got a lot of great stuff planned on this channel coming soon. And thank you all my international subscribers. Make sure you're watching that video because that other one I made just for you guys of all the substitutes for this. Because I know you can't get Amazon in some of these other countries like we can here in the States.
And don't believe the settling on what comes easy takes courage. Don't let haters tell you that it's not worth it. Don't let them take your purpose. I'm taking my sweet time.